Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Scenes. My name is Andres Cuervo. Here, I have conversations with my friends, people in the industry, creatives in general, and we talk about life. We talk about things beyond what we do in work. Today, I have the opportunity, the privilege of having Alberto Garcia or Alberto Garcia, as some people would call you.
Thank you for having me.
Good friends. We've been working together in the industry for some time.
Yeah.
Several projects, and I always joke about, hey, this time it has to be. You got to come to the farm, and finally you came to the farm.
Yes.
All the chickens in the backyard running around, the rabbits. Yeah,
Evidence of the chicken
evidence of the chickens.
right on my shirt.
So, what do you think about coming to the studio and then realizing, oh, this is a whole farming operation in the back?
Oh, I was very impressed. It went further deeper than I had imagined. You even have quail. I didn't realize that. But those things are so cute.
I'm your trusty egg dealer.
Oh yeah, I'll be by for some eggs, especially if they keep going up like they are. Yeah,
Especially now.
because I got a guy.
Yes, I got a god. I'm your god with the egg day. Let's get into it. And first, I want to know a little bit about your background, your family. I know there are things that we share from our Hispanic heritage in growing up in different places, including some places that we share in common. So just tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
hmm Well, my mom moved to Miami when she was a teenager and met my dad there. So I was born local to Miami, but I've spent most of my time in Florida, mostly Tampa. Yeah, I think most of my formative years were Central Florida, Sebring, Florida. But yeah, ever since college, Tampa, Florida, and been all over. But yeah, I think I came here about 5 years ago.
I was born in Colombia, so I know your mom is Ecuadorian, right?
Yes.
And your dad is from
Cuba?
Cuba. That's a hard mix. I'm telling you right there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, really?
Because Cubans are very express in general.
Mhm.
Cubans are very outgoing, expressive. They're very Caribbean, hot blood,
Yeah.
And then Ecuadorians are just like Colombians, more reserved. At least Colombians from the inner part of like Bogota, where I'm from. So Ecuadorians might be more reserved, like cold blood kind of. And so sometimes that could be like a clashing thing. I don't know how it was in your family.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely get that from both sides. So I grew up in a split family. So I grew up with my mom. That's why I'm like very feminine, I would say. But my mom was definitely very on the artsy side and everything. But once I started hanging out with my dad, I think it's cultural.
Yes.
He's like more of a character, more of a presence in a room.
I mean, sometimes it's just generalizing over like the stereotypes, but it's true. The culture and the way they're brought up. It's just different.
The way they cheer for others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was born in Bogota, Colombia, and I grew up, all throughout my teenage years in Colombia, and I didn't immigrate to the States, first of all, to Puerto Rico until I was 18. And so most, like now, over half of my life has been outside of my home country of Colombia.
Yeah.
So I will sometimes, I don't know what to consider myself. Like I'm not fully Colombian anymore, but I'm not fully American. I'm like a mud in between.
Right. So how long were you in Puerto Rico? And how long
Puerto Rico, I was there for 5 years. Then I moved to Texas for another 2 years, and then in Miami for 12 years.
What part of Texas?
I was in Laredo, Texas.
Oh, I haven't even heard of.
That's a border town between Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas, in the Mexican side, and Laredo, Texas. And just like a border town, a lot of challenges, a lot of interesting things from the culture, the Tex-Mex culture, they call it. But yeah, that was part of my transition to living in the United States and learning, assimilating to the culture as well.
So is it similar ecology to the Big Bend National Park? Like very desert and mountains.
Kind of, but the area where Laredo is located, they call it the Valley.
Oh, okay.
The El Valle, Texas. So you got Matamoros, Tamaulipas, you got Laredo, even San Antonio is part of the valley. So it has that deserty kind of feel to it, but there's also mountains there, and in the winter it can be super cold. One of the years that I was living there, it even snowed. So to snow that far south. It was
Winter.
crazy. But in the summer, it would be this insane dry heat that is different from like the humidity. It's almost like
This
you
is
go
true.
outside and you just feel like it's burning your skin. But I have mixed memories about my time in Texas.
Oh, really?
Good memories and then challenging memories. But I
Mhm.
feel like it was a crucial part of my life, just making decisions, learning a lot.
Mm.
I was very young, and kind of learning to be independent, living on my own, um, practicing what I learned from school. So it was in the beginning of my career was when I was living in Texas. As far as starting a podcast, starting into social media, this is 2004. So YouTube has just like the first year, I believe that YouTube was starting as an independent company,
Oh, wow.
and before they were
So way back.
acquired by Google, and also Apple started releasing podcasts as a platform. I had a podcast, Vida Extrema, at the time, with music and interviews and stuff like that. So
Oh, that makes sense. So that's why it shares the same etymology as an iPod. So now it's
yeah,
a podcast. That makes so much sense.
and
It
going
makes me
back
happy.
to your time in Tampa, I was in Tampa around 2004, and I was an intern at a studio that specializes on working with kids content,
Mhm.
and they were doing puppetry art. So it was like a Sesame Street, called The Secret Place, and I was the assistant to the director, and I learned so much. It was really cool. But you
Oh,
were
wow.
also in Tampa around that same time, right?
Yeah, I think I must have just missed you because I came out of high school in 2006 when I believe that's you said you left in 2006.
Well, I finished high school in 1999. And around 2006, I was already in Miami. So I graduated from my first career in 2004.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
I'm very old.
Yeah, so I was a very mid worship leader around that time. And we were playing for like a group of 90 students every week and feeding them pizza and like telling them about God's love and stuff for around that time in my life. And yeah, I once heard a recording of our show, and I was like, wow, I put in so much work into this, and I sound horrible. Like I sound really bad. Like then, like I said, I hadn't recorded much of my work, so at that point, I sort of became more of a recordist and like less of a performer. But yeah, around that time, it's just all live music, and that was my involvement in sound. We had done lots of touring and like recording and EPs and stuff. But yeah,
Were you always passionate about music, like even from an early age? I mean, you mentioned that your mom was very artistic and stuff.
yeah, she was incredibly supportive in anything art wise. She considered it a gift from God, and she just made sure that we were always involved in the church and music and stuff. And so I think that introduced me into like all the techniques of sound and like microphone technique and from a with a very critical eye, because like music is like timing and it's math and it's like and it's art as well. So yeah, I think going from that into film, like it gave me a huge head start.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because, part of these conversations with my friends is just the opportunity to learn more about their background in their life when a lot of our conversations on set are completely not related to any of that. Even when you're out of set, it's like you don't necessarily cultivate this type of environments. But I also grew up listening to Jars of Clay, MXPX,
Oh man,
Value Pack,
taking me back.
The Insiders,
Value Pack.
Supertones.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and some of them were from Florida. That was interesting. A lot of that movement came from the West Coast, but that whole punk and ska era that happened in the late '90s,
5 Iron Frenzy.
Fire and
Yep.
Frenzy. I went to here in Atlanta like 2 years ago. I went to a Fire and Frenzy MXPX reunion.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was all like 40-year-old people.
She had been there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man.
It was so cool. Yeah. So I formed my own band. We used to be called the Light Army.
Oh, cool.
And we play punk, ska,
Good name.
fusions of ska and rocksteady reggae, calypso, soca,
Oh my
those
gosh.
type of stuff.
Were you a singer or
I was
guitarist?
singing and I was playing some of the percussion,
Oh.
but I had a friend. One of my best friends was the drummer. Another friend was the bass player, guitar player, and we started, having concerts and going around touring. I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be a rock star." That was my mentality at the time. I was also going to school for photojournalism, and I was in high school. So I was going to high school. I was working at the newspaper at the time as a photographer, going also through the newspaper, pursuing my career as a photojournalist, dating a model, doing the rock band stuff. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I felt like, I'm going to leave the country and start a new life and go to Puerto Rico.
Oh my gosh.
So I studied
What is it?
theology and philosophy for 5 years.
Wow.
So completely different, which is interesting because you didn't necessarily study film, right? Like that wasn't your
Really?
decision.
No,
What was
not at all.
what was your career before getting into filmmaking?
Well, it's a funny story. I thought that all I wanted to do in life was with music, so I spent all of my time doing that and writing songs and like just doing everything. I spent my first year in college at University of South Florida as a undeclared major and as an undecided student.
Okay.
And before I auditioned for the School of Music, which was within the USF campus, and I got sick right before our audition, and I delivered the worst performances I've ever done in my life. And they were right. They said, you don't have to be in the College of Music in order to join like some of our extracurriculars, like the Glee Club or the Hot Band they called it, or the Herd of Thunder, which was like a band that played at the football games for all the people who weren't in the music school.
So it was basically we'll call you later.
Yeah, and I did get that letter later saying like you did not make it into the school, which was fair. But then I did my fallback, which was software development. And so I took project management, software development, and something else. But yeah, information technology. So, and I'm glad I did, honestly, because that was very, very helpful. Like knowledge, especially the project development, just kind of gave me an insight into like more business aspects of things and waste management, not like insofar as like just optimizing workflows, and I think that doing things on the software side, it just opens up your brain to like what's possible, and like it makes you question everything that you're doing and if it can be done better.
That's interesting because I mean, often people say, "Oh, you're a right brain or a left brain," and right brain, you're more this way, and you're more, inquisitive and more like task oriented and more organized and more of an engineer mindset. And then if you're left brained, then you're more artistic, and then you're more creative, maybe a little bit disorganized and
Yeah.
stuff. And so, but in your case, I mean, you always were more like artistic and pursuing music and sound, but then you're mixing it up and shifting to something that's more engineer driven or more technology driven and more of implementing workflows or organization. And you'll think those things clash, but in your case it was more like they complement each other.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that people are pretty complicated and like good for the most part, and they're all just driven by their passions and their interests. So I don't think anybody's just left brain or just right brain. I think like everybody's has a nerdy side, I'd say. So I feel like I'm no different there, but having that background and that education, like it landed me in cancer research, which like put me in the environment and surrounded me with people who didn't know the definition of the word no. They just or the definition of something that couldn't be done. They just like were just problem solvers. And so with me coming from a background of like, oh, we just gotta live paycheck to paycheck, like we just gotta like get our degree, go to work, and just work all day, put our noses to the grindstone, and now I'm surrounded with people who are trying to change the world. I think it was a good influence on me, and seeing like, oh, we can actually go any pathway we want to
Mm.
follow.
That's very interesting as well, because I mean, a lot of people think with the arts, especially coming from like music and touring around, that that could be a very glamorous life. But there's another side of it where it's like super stressful, and you're traveling a lot, but under like very difficult conditions. And we see the lifestyle of many musicians that are, successful. And and the success comes at a price, and then we start valuing what it is success versus what it is quality of life. Same thing with people that are in the medical industry. Yes, they do have a passion. They seem to be driven not only for making money but doing good, but it also is very stressful. People like lawyers as well. They do make money. They do good for people. At least that's what they're pursuing. But many people in that industry are also managing quality of life versus success.
Yes.
And when I, relate, when I work with you and we're in relationship, when we're talking, I see that you do value quality of life, even over what other people perceive as success. And I don't know if you can touch on that a little.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely struggle with. And I'm constantly reminding myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, there's a reason why I like left my desk job to come work in the arts again. And and I one thing that helps me is like I remind myself, like, what if I made it? What if I got all the money I needed to like do whatever I wanted? What would I just like stop making films, or
Mm.
would I walk away from the industry? And I don't think I would. I'd probably do things differently, but I would probably still be working on people's passion projects. I'd probably just spend more time with my family, and if I think about it from a quality of life standard, like I can do that now. I don't need all the money in order to like take some time off and spend some time with my girlfriend, and like, or just like work on something that makes me happy, even if it's not going to make me a lot of money. It just like gets my head in the space where, oh, I'm not going to be just like in the dumps for forever. I'm doing what I want to already. Like,
Yeah.
I should already be happy. And yeah, so that's one thing that just helps me keep my head in the right place.
Mm. I think we often think of success in terms of indicators like financial ability, or uh, having money or position or recognition, or your network and your cloud and your outreach, but there are other measurements of success as well. And I think quality of life is not necessarily related to having more or having less, but being able to work with what you have, and if not being completely happy, at least be content. Or like when you say, it's like, even as a filmmaker, having or not having uh the success of money and recognition of that, doing passion projects kind of keeps you in check with, like, this is the reason I'm making it. uh what do you think about quality of life related to those work life balance decisions that we make often?
Mm-hmm. I So looking back at the time I've spent um, since leaving my desk job and since committing to a full-time career in film, I'd say like probably the hardest times were when I was just like working nonstop and like just like taking anything I could. Um, and so and yeah, there are a lot of pressures that are affiliated with this industry, like exactly as you're saying, with clout, and like you're expected to wear so many hats and be your own producer, your own marketing, your own um, just your own advertising, as well as like maintaining all the relationships that you're forming, and then on top of all that, you're supposed to be an artist too. So
Mm.
it's it is a lot of pressure. And I think that taking some time to touch some grass and just like stepping away every once in a while, or just like
Mm.
being thankful that like, oh, I don't have to work this week, even though the industry is telling you like, oh, you're failing as a as a filmmaker if you're not working, that's not necessarily true at all. That's like, it can be a gift. Like, that lets you focus on you. Like, I think any writer you talk to, like, will say like, you can't write something unless you've lived life and like experienced life, not something that's going to connect with other people. So just like embrace it, like, and just enjoy, or like I would say, if you can, try to just enjoy that time off that you can get, and maybe even advocate for it. um I know that like the reality of the industry is like, we kind of have to go with the waves, but yeah, it's not, don't be like me and just work all the time. Definitely take some time for yourself, otherwise you'll just become one dimensional. And like what you're saying is something I'm learning every day and trying to remind myself every day, because like, as I said, there's so much pressure.
Because add to that, nowadays, social media and what it incentivizes, So I don't know how you see that as well as was one of those stressors.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I think everybody says this, but I'm so terrible at keeping up with it, and I think that's like beneficial to the platforms. Is like, everybody is expected to be posting at a certain frequency, or else you'll just be forgotten and not be successful, or as they say. But yeah, it can exponentially just lay on the pressure of like comparison, with comparison being the thief of joy, like, or the killer of joy. Um, yeah, it takes away a lot of the fun and artistry from what should be a collaborative format. Like, yes, there are other people that are doing the exact same vocation as you, but that could be your perfect business partner. That could be like a good friend or resource, or like just somebody who relates to you that you can like vent to or whatever. But some of the people that I look up to most are like people like Carlos and the crew surrounding you and yours. I like how immersive you guys are. Like, we do some documentary work, and a lot of times you'll see, if people are chanting, you'll see Carlos chanting along. If somebody's doing a slip and slide, he's gonna be sliding down that slip and slide with his camera. So he likes to get involved in the story, like, instead of just being a passive fly on the wall. And that's the kind of photojournalism that'll like get some really true and candid moments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, like, if I look at the people that I respect their work most, um they've figured that out. They've figured out like, this isn't just a business. It can become a very lucrative career, but it won't be as honest if that's all it is to you.
hmm And what are some of the practical steps that you implement on your own path to be able to cope with the stress, cope with the pressures? At least I can tell you for on myself, it's having the little farm. You saw me just going, feeding the chickens, feeding the quails, checking out to the bunnies. Sometimes a chicken will die and you have to bury her.
Yeah.
You have to pick up the eggs. These things, and then you realize, oh, I'm spending an hour or something in, and then you don't want to go back to your funk. You want to keep being active in your particular path and journey. What are some of the practical things that you're implementing to maybe get in contact with nature, develop better relationships, form a network of like-minded people, things like that?
So yeah, that's such a good question. Something that and I'm an introvert, by the way. Like, so a lot of sound people are introverts. We're listeners. So this is definitely something that I have to force myself to do, but I'm always happy that I did it. And that's like investing in my own community, and like forming not just business relationships, but friendships. I like, when I moved out here to Atlanta, starting from scratch, didn't know anybody in the area. So all my friends have already moved to all over the world. So, so these first connections that you made, they're all like colleagues and business partners. You'll see them if they're on set. So making that extra effort to do something outside of film,
Yeah.
and is just like, and forming that little community, like, it could have the side effect of like making good better business relationships, but I don't think you should do it for that purpose. So you need to have friendship, and you need to have people who understand you and that you can talk to. That's helped my mental health a lot, and it's something I neglected for a good amount of time. Because if every conversation you're having is about work, like, you're gonna again become one dimensional
Yeah.
and be just a useless human who's like very good at one thing and then useless everywhere else.
Yeah, and we talk often among ourselves the importance of networking, and we go to networking events. And sometimes the way I see it is, if you're in this networking event, is because you're not working, first of all. And so
Not working, networking.
we're all on the same page, and we're all talking about our accomplishments to look better, but we're also kind of hungry to find jobs. It is such an awkward situation to network in our industry. And sometimes I just see it. I'm just going to make friends, to meet people, regardless of what the outcome is, in favor of my industry and my business or whatever. And that's at least the approach that I have. But I know that many people in the film industry go to these networking events with the anticipation and the desire and the mentality of like, I need to get as many cards, and I need to, hand as many cards. I don't hand any business cards at all on networking events. I might exchange like social media um, information, but it's mostly like, who do I vibe with? And let me continue cultivating that relationship. It's not much of a numbers game. It's more of a quality of context that I can make. I don't know what's your experience like in the networking side of your life.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because it's something that I keep like having to relearn is wherever you're investing your time, like, and like you're saying, like, I want to network. You want to network with the right people, the people you vibe with, not just whoever, like, or numbers game. Um, Wherever you're investing your time, like, that's where your life is gonna go, in that direction. Like, but my passion's in narrative, so I'm not going to like build a huge empire based on all of my corporate contacts. If I want to be doing narrative film. So it's just really nice to, or it's nice to know that, like, as long as you're investing where you want to be, into where you want to be, it'll be okay. Like, so, and that's scary at first. Like, and I'm still, especially in with where films at right now, I'm still like saying yes to everything that comes across my desk. But like, there's still little ways you can invest in
Yeah.
the avenue you want to go down.
I like when you say, investing in time, because I think quality of life is proportional to the way you're investing your time. Or the way to see it is that life is measured in years, right? Which is a measurement of time. So the quality of life is the quality of how you invest your time. Is directly related, or life is a gift that you have, and whatever you do with that time frame that we are on Earth, is your gift back to how you were put in this earth with a purpose. And I really like how you talk about investing your time. Sometimes we're really great at investing our time in work and stuff, and then we go home and we just want to relax. We want to disconnect. We don't want to do anything else. I'm starting to see time as a commodity that is not endless, at least
Yeah.
here. And so I'm starting to think, okay, I'm going to be more involved in my kids' soccer games. I'm going to go to group therapy on Monday nights. I'm going to randomly call my friends and go hiking or do something. It's hard because, just like you, that's not my motivation all the time. Like, I have to work at it. But I'm realizing time as a commodity, and what I do with my time, it's what I do with my life. And whatever I invest my time on reveals what's a priority in my life and in my heart. How you spend your time with your future and the plans that you have.
So I think it's been the worst kept secret, that I've, like, me and my girlfriend are going to be getting engaged soon. She's already wearing her ring. Once we got it sized, she like refused to give it back. So and her parents know that I'm like gonna be asking them for their blessing. Everybody knows. so, so I
So it's not
think
like TMC
no,
exclusive.
no, I'm really bad at keeping
You heard it
secrets.
here,
I'm
guys, on the
terrible.
podcast. Alvi is not available anymore.
No, thank goodness. But yeah, I feel like after like moving, like that big life change of like leaving all your friends and family and networking community behind and to start a new like life goal, is it's very lonely, and it makes you appreciate all those things that you those communal things that you take for granted in your younger years, where you have things like school and a day job that like puts you in a community. It just sticks you right in there. With film, like you might have a different community every week. You might not see people that you really respect and like for like a year before like before the next shoot with them. Even though it is a really small film is a small community, so that really makes me value my home life and my relationship with my girlfriend. And it makes me want to invest all my time in that. And it's not just the um the cloud nine, the honeymoon phase of a relationship. It's like it's after being in past relationships, you can see like you know exactly what's good and what is not, and like what is like wholesome and helpful to your health, your happiness, to your peace of mind. And like not having that really makes you appreciate every little bit of it. And so I'm like so grateful to have her in my life. I'm so happy to be investing in her, and she's doing the same for me. It's just like you have to realize that so much of what you do in life is temporary, but some of these relationships are going to be with you until you're in your deathbed in like 40 years maybe, I hope. So investing in like spending time with your family, with your mom, your dad, your brothers, sisters, your significant other, you're never gonna regret that time, I think. And I'm just enjoying it as long as it lasts.
You know, as an introvert and as somebody that considers himself more of a nerd or a geek or whatever, we spend a lot of time, you know, watching films or playing games or whatever. Uh, how is it that you still connect with nature and that you prioritize sometimes to just go out hiking
Mm-hmm.
with your girlfriend or seek those opportunities to be in the outdoors and what it means to you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I think approaching it as an introvert is the perfect way of describing it. It's just like such a recharge. I am a huge reader, and I'm very audibly stimulated. So I've always got like either TikTok playing or music playing or books. I
Podcast.
need something happening just to keep me from like, I don't know, just getting lost in my thoughts. But there's something different about going out on a hike, going for a walk, in nature, not like down the street. Um, that allows me to kind of turn off my brain a little bit and reset. And I think I think the Appalachian Trail, like goes all the way up to Maine. It starts pretty close to here.
It starts in Deloni, guys.
Yeah. Oh, really? Well, I think that's a really important part of me. Uh, like me and my friends done through hikes of it. I've done a bunch of day hikes and section hikes, like in all of the states um, that it traverses through. But like there, it's like a green tunnel. You can
Mm.
just lose yourself in like, or lose all like view of society and construction. You can just like just exist and be.
Mhm.
This sounds very ethereal, but I think that taking that time to reset is incredibly important to me. There was a time in my life where I was really into motorcycling, and I was like just trying to like fix my bike and then go moto camping, and all that's all I wanted to do is like go camping on my motorcycle. And I had done a ride from Florida all the way up to Shenandoah, and then got rained out by a tropical storm. But they have these campsites that are called two wheels only campsites, and they're like just little slices of heaven. They're usually along a creek bed and like in a grassy field, and you can only get in there if you have a motorcycle. But it's a it's almost a magical experience just going out there, like forcing yourself to do something that's like hot and sticky and annoying, and like you're getting eaten by flies, and like it's just tough. But while it's a reset and it's relaxing, it's tough. And then when you get back home, you're like, oh, look at all these creature comforts that I've amassed. It's really nice, but at the same time, it's nice to know I don't need them, and I can be fine just like with a simple life.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good touchstone that resets your perspective, and just lets you just isolate yourself and see who you are without all of that extra.
Unless you're watching a silent film, 50% of what we do is sound, and the other 50% is moving images,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, but it seems like a lot of people disregard the value of sound. The way I see it is that, and the way that I've learned is that uh, the brain is able to forgive the loss of quality when it comes to images, but it's not the same thing when it is sound. If you cannot understand what the characters are saying or what the sound is or is bad quality, it's almost like the brain shuts off, like it doesn't, that it rejects that, but it's more forgiving on the images. Um, but if you have bad sound, it just like it doesn't help to the story. I don't know, as somebody that works, primarily in the field of sound in filmmaking, how do you see, the value of your work, and because we both have experienced how people, oh no, well, sound is not that important. You should just put a mic and that will be it. And you're like, come on, it is really important.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Yes, like sound, I see my job as like my job is to be there to support camera and by selling their image. Um, and like, yeah, and that's a thankless job sometimes. So putting it in the brain's perspective, like we're looking at 24 frames a second, and our brains connect those with 24 samples in a second. With sound, you're looking at 48,000 samples per second. If we had 24, you wouldn't even hear it. Your brain wouldn't even register anything's happening, anything's playing through a speaker. So what we process audibly is so much higher frequency, and it is very important in connecting the story and like having that constant immersion, because that's part of what's filling in the gaps between those 24 frames. And like I think your sound guy is such a resource to you as a cinematographer, like even if it's so subconscious, like what we're hearing, and but it is such a high frequency that you could easily be taken out of the story. And we just want to help. We're just here to look at your frame. We're like, okay, so how can we sell this? How can we tell this story best? How can we best support you guys?
And add to that the value of sound design. So that goes beyond just recording sound on the field, but also kind of creating this atmosphere, being able to enhance after in post.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it works. At least there was a time where we start shooting raw on cameras, and people came at it with the mentality of like, don't worry, just you don't need to worry about exposure, you don't need to worry about color, because that's all metadata and you'll fix it in post. I don't know if the same way for sound, if it is the same way for sound when it comes to like 32-bit flow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. If it peaks, if it's under, you have all this latitude that you can fix it in post. How do you see it? It's almost like the raw equivalent on the sound field.
Yeah, there's two good points there. In regard to 32-bit float, that is such a great tool. I wish the whole industry had embraced it as a whole when it dropped. Yeah, that floating point gives us the equivalent of maybe dual gain
I see.
sensors or something. Like it gives us like more latitude than most microphones can even pick up. Um, that's one that's one part of sound that has been solved. That's great. Do we need it to get good sound? No. You can get it with 24-bit. You can do the same thing. Because if you tried to listen to the the latitude of a 32-bit float, what it container can hold, you'd blow out your eardrums. But but the nice thing is, but there are still other aspects. It's still your mic placement and your environment. And with film, it's so exciting because you're working with all these artists who are reinventing the wheel all the time, and they're like coming up with all these crazy riggings and scenarios, and we as sound people get to like be motivated by that. We get like all the crazy things that camera teams coming up with. Like we get to like come up with new ways to capture that as well. So one of the things that's lost a lot of the time is like the environment though. Like, so let's say we need like a lot of light for this shot because we need really deep focus. Well, now we're cranking all these generators in the background. And yeah, so like sound is pretty straightforward and easy until you change the environment. And so that's what it makes it so challenging and exciting, is like, wow, how are we gonna get this? How are we gonna sell this image when now we have like all these lights? We have a chandelier with 100 lights that are making it impossible to get a light in frame. So maybe we could hide something somewhere. Or like there's this image is in a huge 16,000 square foot warehouse, but we're shooting it in a huge warehouse, but it's a very small like hospital bed or something. That's a very tiny room. So how are we going to sell this to make it sound like a little hospital bed? So we have to like build a little room out of C-stands and blankets or whatever. It's just a lot of fun to approach each shot as a new challenge and obstacle course. I think that was one of one of the things that
Goes beyond understanding the technology of the 32 flow, and not everything is that latitude to get information. There are other ways that also affect the quality of the sound, like you're saying, mic placements, or how do you create an environment, or how you control the environment. And that goes beyond just the 32-bit flow workflow management, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you just reminded me of what the other good point you made was, is like, yes, sound is 50% of this story that we're trying to create. Us as location sound engineers and recordists, we are just 1/3 of the sound, that 50%. We are location sound. We are capturing a very important element, which is the actors' performances and the space and the feel. But a lot of times we're forgetting about Foley, and we're forgetting about score. So these are all just as important as what we're doing as location sound recordists. These people need to be recognized for their art, and especially we're called production sound mixers. We aren't mixers, we're recordists these days. We have so many ISOs. We have that raw capability that camera's still trying to get to. Like, let's get 20 stops of dynamic range and then we'll be happy. But yeah, sound is there in dynamic range wise. That I've given gold to the post team before, and they'll take my footage and they'll just like turn on all the mics like up to 11, and it'll just sound like a child recorded this. And I'm sure you've experienced the same thing where you hand over, and like, who colored this or whatever. So yes, the mixer is still a very important person. They're just on the post side now. and no on-set mixer can create another mix or a better mix than the same sound mixer who can do it 11 times and like get it perfect. So yeah, so we have those ISOs. We're doing our best to record and capture the best possible raw tracks for the environment, whether we have generators or not. We're just trying to get the best signal to noise ratio and make it sound like the image, whatever that might be.
If you were to compare quality of sound with quality of life as an allegory, I guess, how would you see it and how would you interpret that?
Um, so in terms of quality, like practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so you have to be investing in the right areas. And that's the same thing with life. Like if you're investing all this time into making more money or like working all the time, you're practicing working all the time and you're getting really good at working all the time. You're not you're not putting any time into becoming a good husband or a good friend or a good significant other. And so when you go to do those things, you're just going to be crap at it to start with. But if you can do those things now, and it'll make a difference down the road. Maybe not right away, but it'll put you on that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think definitely like quality of life comes as a result of sometimes not even searching for it. It comes as a result of putting your mind into what is your goal, what is your north, what are your priorities,
Mhm.
and then that starts improving. So quality of life comes as a result of those decisions that you're making. But
Absolutely.
just like many other people say, if you keep doing the same things, trying to get other results, like you're not gonna get those results, you know. So it's challenging for us in the industry. Is not a secret, and it doesn't come as a surprise that our industry is going through tough times right now. And like you said, sometimes it's going in nature and resetting, and sometimes we have to do those resets ourselves when it comes to the industry. Find ways where we can be more creative outside of our comfort zone and outside of what we used to do. Um, and but that's part of what I appreciate of these conversations, because we get that mutual feedback of like, what are the things that we're doing to reset, what are the things that we're doing, what people call reinvent yourself. I think people do it in times of hardships and desperation. And I recently uh, was thinking that desperation with willingness takes you somewhere. You can be desperate and be going all over the place and not get anywhere, and you can be very intentional but not have that thrive in that motivation that is pushing you. But when you're in positions where you're desperate about something, about change, and you're willing, that definitely becomes like a engine that pushes you somewhere. You decide where you want to go, but at least you have that push, uh that drive that is taking you somewhere. So I appreciate that we have these conversations now.
Yeah.
I know that you are participating in different projects and collaborating with people. That's something very unique that you're doing, uh, because you want to give back to the community, but also, in the industry, uh, you're somebody that specializes also not only in capturing sound but in many other elements, and then through your experiences you're mixing that artistic form with the project management background that you have, and that's very unique, and I'm pretty sure people would love to contact you. I know what would be the best way for people to get in touch with you and learn more about Abby's life and journey.
The best way to get in touch with me is probably through Instagram. My handle is at softstickssound, and yeah, our website is softsticksound.com.
And Softstick Sound is doing beyond just audio. It's
Yeah.
expanding into different areas and capturing more stuff.
Absolutely. We're launching Softstick Studios now. I'm trying to create our own IPs. We've got a couple narrative features that we want to like get off the ground this year, and that are kind of experimental with our approach, and we're just like doing it with our friends, people that we've been working with for a while now, and like just want to see if we can like try our own approach at this
Yeah.
thing, this crazy storytelling.
Many times we're
Yep.
waiting to tell other people's stories and work on other people's projects
Yeah.
because we get paid for that. How cool it is to say, hey, I'm going to invest my time. I'm going to improve my quality of life by investing in my own ideas, my own stories, my own scripts. And that's awesome. And also the fact that you have been very vocal and public about searching opportunities that are meaningful, that go beyond just, oh, I work on this project and what that. But no, this project is transformative in a way, and that you are purposely, and you're conscious about seeking those opportunities. And I think that when we do that, those projects come to us.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's interesting to see that you are actively looking for projects that are meaningful, that are transformative, that help communities, and you want to tap into that and be part of them.
Absolutely, and it's in some ways it's selfish. Like it never feels like I'm working if the cause is good. Like,
Yeah.
and if I don't have to feel like I'm working, then I'm happy. Like, but yeah, it's like these wholesome projects, like working for like the CDC or like social services and stuff like that, or prison reform. Like these are things that are changing other people's lives and it's making their days better. And so like, yeah, sign me up. I'd love to work on something that has a really good impact on this world that we're all trying to survive.
Yeah. Thank you, Alvi, for coming. I appreciate the fact that we have this time, and I
Mhm.
appreciate you as a friend. And honestly, my best wishes now in this new season of your life.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you.
we have this exclusive here in the podcast. Uh, I'll be getting married
He's gonna
soon.
get in trouble.
But thank you for coming again. I wish you the best as a friend and as a colleague, and I just emphasize that there's a reason why we vibe, and I think is we connect in this way, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank you, and thank you for getting my mind off of just the work mentality. I love what you're doing with this.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And if you also love what we're doing here, I encourage you to, share these links for the content and share the podcast and the interviews. And I will see you in the next episode of Beyond the Scenes.